Got a 2007, I think, Ford Taurus. It has no brakes. Pedal goes all the way to the floor. You can already see the leak right there. If you're gonna need the car, let's see if I can get a shot. Well, obviously the brake lines are rotted. You can see right there. So they've been replaced, but someone put union fittings, which should not be on a brake system. And the line that they put on is the line that's leaking. Alright, so I got a mess here, but I'm just about done with the brake lines on this Ford Taurus. And we just did two sections, you know, the cut out what was bad, and then that's it. You know, we're not replacing all the lines here, whatever. The most important thing is that we got rid of these crappy compression fittings that whoever was in here last to do these brake lines, they use these, and you should not be using them. But the reason why it actually ruptured right here is because they left this a little bit too close to the body of the car, and it was actually rubbing. Because if you go down here, you can see the lines get really good, and that's where I cut it, and I put my splice in right here where the line was perfectly clean, and the same thing on the other side, a nice clean spot. So these two sections got replaced. Let's go look underneath the car. And I tried to put them in their, you know, brackets, so you could see that right there. There goes my two connections, and we're not using compression fittings, we're actually using unions. So it comes up, and of course you want to make sure the two lines don't touch anything. They are not touching. I know it's a weird angle, but they are not touching each other. And see, it's in that bracket, comes up behind this. This is for the emergency brake or the parking brake. And you know, I did try moving this around, and no matter which way it moves, it does not come in contact with the new brake lines. And then get this out the way, and they bend right here, and this is actually where the old ones rotted out, which is right here. They were way too close to the pinch weld, so they were actually touching the body right here, and that's what caused them to rot out right here. So as you can see, we are miles away from that pinch weld. Again, oh, this is not an OEM bracket. Here I'm just using zip ties to basically keep the line sturdy and keep them separated so they don't touch each other or they don't bang off of anything. And there you go. See, this is what I was talking about. The line is perfectly clean here after I pulled back some of this insulation. So I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. Nothing is touching, and it looks pretty good to me. Working on a Chevy Cobalt today. It's here for front brake pads, and when they dropped it off, I asked him, well, is it making any noise, like metal on metal? And he's like, no, it's good, we just want to change pads. So, you know, he parked it like right here, and I just moved it up like 4 or 5 feet. I hit the brake, I really didn't hear anything, so I was like, okay, we'll just put the pads on it. And I get on this side, and look at that. That thing is done for. So now I called the owner. I told him, hey, you need a rotor on this thing. And he was like, okay, I'll see when I could get it, when I could stop by. I'm like, the frustration. I should have known better. You got me. I should have known better. Because nobody in this area just changes pads because they want to change pads. There had to have been a problem, and this is it. So shame on me. Got a Nissan Versa here. And I did the front brakes on this car not too long ago. As you can see, it has relatively new rotors and pads on it, but it's actually a comeback because the owner says there's a noise coming up front only when you hit the brakes. And yes, it is from up front, and it mainly is only when you're hitting the brake. Even when you let off of the brake pedal, when you're coming to a stop, it's just always there, and it sounds like something that's consistent with a rotor that's spinning, you know. So basically every time you get to that one spot, it hits something, and you could hear what sound. It sounds super weird. Anyway, yeah, I spent a good amount of time checking the front brakes, the rear brakes. I really couldn't find any problem. And then I noticed this. If you look inside of here, look at the bushing on that lower control arm. It is torn. And look at this bushing right here, it is separated. So if we grab a prying tool, that's the noise we are hearing. Right there. So as you're hitting the brakes and you're coming to a stop, this is what you hear. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with the brakes. So technically it is not a comeback. It's here for a different problem. So it's going to need a lower control arm. I'm going to go ahead and check the control arm on the right side of the car. And if it looks close to in the same condition as this, they're both going to get changed at the same time. Here we are on the right side of the car. And here goes one of the bushings. So you can see it's worn out. It's not as bad as the bushing on the left side of the car, but it's definitely worn out. It's eventually going to give up the ghost. And as well as this bushing right here, you could see it's torn. So I'm going to recommend both of the lower control arms get changed at the same time, because if we change just one, it won't be long before he's back here again with the same exact problem, with the same noise. And technically, even though it's not my fault, if he only wants to change one and he gets another noise because of this side, it looks bad for me, okay? So I'm going to recommend both control arms get changed at the same time. Got a 2000 Chevy Cavalier here. I think it's a Cavalier, yeah. Overheating issues. They say it's only overheating when they're at a stop. If they start moving, the temperature starts to drop and everything seems normal. The guy said he noticed that the fan does not turn on, so just in case, he brought me a new fan. And I got my little relay jumper in here. As you can see, that's for the cooling fan. I did check the fuse, which is this 30 amp green one, and that's perfectly fine. Now if we go using the test light here, I've got the fan disconnected already. So as you can see, we have our ground. And if we move this over to ground right here, we get nothing on the positive side, but let's hit the switch. And there goes our power. And of course I tried this with the fan plugged in and absolutely nothing. So it is confirmed we have a dead fan. Alright, just so I don't get burned like I've gotten burned plenty of times before, decided to open up the box and check the part. It does look like it's the right part. And I also wanted to plug it in just to confirm that it's working, but it's just not, the harness isn't long enough to reach up here. So the next best thing, I'm just going to use a power probe to activate the new fan. There we go, it works. Alright, so I'm just about done here. Got the new fan installed, as you can see, and it was a nightmare to get the old one out. And it was primarily because of this AC line. So there was no way of really getting to it with everything inside of here. But once I finally got the old fan out, if you bend the AC line down there just a little bit back, you won't believe how fast the new one went in. It just made a world of difference. I could not bend it while everything was in there, but once the fan was out, I had more than enough space to go in there and bend that line back just a little bit. And the new fan, like, let's just say it took 30 minutes to get the old fan out, and within 1 minute the new fan was in. That's how much of a difference it made. So anyway, the old one, I pretty much bench tested it, and it turned on for like a second, and then I could not get it to turn on again. And like I said, new one is installed, battery is reconnected, so let's go ahead and hit the switch. There we go, everything's working good. So I'm just gonna go ahead, finish putting this panel back on it. Everything else is put back together. I could start the car up, let it idle, get up to temperature, and make sure that the fan is kicking on as it should. I wonder who would do this enough to the point where they had to put a notice on here. That's crazy. It's actually pretty funny. Okay, so the car still appears to be overheating a little bit. Not much. The fan turned on just fine. So I came to check the reservoir and it's completely empty. Problem I'm having is I can't even get this cap off. It just spins forever. and even if you like pry upward while you're spinning it, it just won't come off. And it's starting to snow out here. Just so frustrating dealing with pieces of crap. Ugh. Alright, so I finally got that cap off, and I believe it's the wrong cap. That's why it doesn't fit very well. But it took about half a gallon of antifreeze, and as you can see, I'm trying to bleed the system. I have my funnel outside of there. It doesn't seem, I'm holding up the RPM as you can see, and it doesn't seem to be overheating anymore. We're actually getting heat, and I noticed that even before when it was overheating, if I put my hand right here, we had no heat coming out the vents. So I don't know, I'm not getting paid for any of this. I just got paid to change a radiator fan. That's what I did. The fan's working. So I'm just gonna do a quick bleed on the system, let the owner know about it. If he has any future problems, he's just gonna have to bring it back to figure out what's actually wrong, if there is a problem. I don't know why it's low on antifreeze, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Alright, so we got a Chevy Malibu here, and one of the blender actuators is making noise. It's the one that's down here. And as you can see, the customer's already started taking it apart. She tried doing the job herself and ended up cutting up her hand, and just you know, decided to pay someone else to do it. So let's go ahead, get it taken care of. Alright, so I got the new blender actuator installed. As you can see, it's way back there. Well, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but luckily it let's see, so it sits, let me turn this light off. It sits like this, and this lower one is the only one that has a screw on it. These other two locations are basically alignment dowels, and then they have little clips on the sides that hold it. So all you really have to do is remove one screw and then pry it out of the clips, and it comes out. Still a pain in the butt to change, but it's all fixed. I tested it out, everything works, no more noise, so we're all set. And as far as this, the owner took this apart, and I noticed that there's supposed to be screws right here holding this in, and the owner also took that apart, which I cannot find the screws for it. So I don't know if I should look for the screws or try to get in contact with them, or just leave it because they were the ones that took it apart. I just noticed all of this stuff is broken. You can see the trim, everything snapped. So I don't know the story. Oh crap, that's what I get for touching things. I don't know the story behind this, but I don't know if someone thought the clicking noise was coming from behind here and they tried taking this off and they just broke everything, or what the heck. But yeah, I am back with this Nissan Versa. We have two new lower control arms for it. I already did the one on the right side of the car. So as you can see, I'm on the left side, and I already removed the old lower control arm. Take a closer look at it here. You can see how it's completely torn. Like, I could just pull this out with my hand if I wanted to. You know, lower control arm, I'm not upset with you. I'm just disappointed, okay? So just go home. You know what? Just go home. Go on, get. Go. Nobody wants you around here. I'm in a Chevy Cruze. A few months ago, I diagnosed this one has a bad turbo on it, and it just got dropped off because we have a replacement turbo. And I'm just taking it out for initial test drive, you know, pretty much so I can distinguish before and after I put the turbo on. Right now we have like a very loud whining noise coming from up front. The car doesn't have a lot of power, so I got the pedal floored all the way down, and it's not moving as it should. So that's gonna be it for this test drive. Just go ahead and put it in the garage. I finally got the turbo off of this Chevy Cruze, and it was not as easy as people make it out to be. It was actually a pain in the butt. Well, at least for me it was. I've seen other people's YouTube videos of them pulling it out as one assembly, meaning like this, connected. But I just could not get it out. I don't know. So I ended up taking it out in 2 pieces, which was still a pain in the butt. But it's out. And what I found is this unit has actually been replaced before. Because what do we see here? Dum, dum, dum. The wings. Now, of course, the new unit right here is a Chinese part. But we don't see the dormant wings on it. And I could almost guarantee you that even the OEM part is made in China. That's not a fact, I'm just assuming, because most things are nowadays. And if we take a closer look at the turbos here, looking at the new one, I try to spin, let's see if I get this. Try to spin the turbine. Super smooth. There is no play in the shaft at all. It's nice and solid. Wastegate looks good. And look at the old one here. I noticed that when the wastegate opens, yeah, it's open right there, it's actually stuck. Like I'm trying to push it back and it won't go. You gotta like really force it and mess with it. And there it goes. And once again, it's stuck open. So that right there is a big problem. Also, the turbo itself has a lot of play in it. This thing, first of all, it doesn't want to spin as freely. See how fast it stops? There is a lot of play in this. I know you can't see because the whole thing is shaking, but there's a lot of play here. I even showed it in one of my previous videos when I put the camera inside the turbo so I could show you guys this. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just gonna go ahead and slap the new turbo on. Should be all set. Here's a closer look at the wastegate on the new turbo. You can see how easily it moves, and also it does not get stuck. Alright, so I'm pretty much done. As you can see, the only thing I'm missing is the actual heat shield, and I'll just wait to put that on at the very end. It's just 3 little bolts that hold it in place. Everything else is reconnected. So let's go ahead and start her up. Hopefully it does not explode. Okay, everything seems to be sounding normal. I actually heard the turbo spool up, so that's good. Oh, and before anyone says anything, yes, I did crank the engine over a few times to try to get oil up to the turbo. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off so I don't die in the garage, and just take it out for a test drive. Final inspection right before a test drive. Heat shield is installed. I cleared check engine light. There was like 9 or 10 different codes in there. One of them is related to the cooling system. We have a cooling code, and if you look around here, you see this big mess we have. The water pump is leaking, and if you look at the reservoir over here, it has absolutely no coolant in it. So she did not complain to me about overheating, but I'm sure to start doing it very soon if it isn't already. So I'm gonna ask the woman to bring a gallon of antifreeze when she comes to pick it up. That water pump needs to get fixed. All right, here we go. And look what I found here. A key just sitting here. Let's see if it starts the car. And it's not the one I was using, because this is the one I was using. It It sure does. You probably should not leave your spare key sitting right there. Alright, so I haven't even made it around the block once, and I can already feel a very big improvement. Whoa, that turbo is working overtime. Alright, let's go again. Whoa. This thing goes. Wow. I mean, I know it's not stupid fast, but I guess I'm comparing it to how it was before we changed the turbo, and it definitely has a lot more power. Alright, that's enough. Wow. Alright, it's all set. I'll go ahead and call a woman and tell her about the other problems the car has. And that's it for this one, guys. Working on my neighbor's Durango once again. And oh, this is the one that had that grounding issue underneath the dash. But it's here because the windshield wiper fluid doesn't work, so it doesn't spray. Okay, so the wipers move, but we get no fluid. I checked the fuses, everything seemed to be okay. So I got everything taken apart up there, and I have a test light connected right to the harness of the pump. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the button. If we're getting power to the pump, that light should turn on. There we go. Hopefully you can see the light over there next to that snap-on tool. Alright, so it's pretty definitive now. We have a bad pump, but just for shits and giggles, I'm gonna go ahead and put power directly to the pump and see if we get anything out of it. Alright, so here goes the pump right here. I have the ground connected already. Alright, let's give it power, and absolutely nothing out of it. If anyone knows why the Power Pro is doing this, it's not connected to anything. It keeps doing this. I mean, obviously it's connected to the battery of the car. I mean, I could tell as I move the cable or the wire around. See, now it just stops. So I don't know, do I have a break in the wire somewhere? What's going on with this? It's super annoying. Look, it just completely stopped now. And there it goes again. Alright, so here is tonight's project. It's a Toyota Avalon. It's here for inner and outer tie rods as well as lower control arms. If you look at the control arms here, you can see what's going on. You can see how it's pretty much done for. Now, as far as the tie rods, I started with those first. As you can see, they're all done. I did the ones on the right side already. Now, I actually started on the right side. Okay, I put it all together, 100% buttoned it up. Then I come on the left side, and when it came time to put on the inner tie rod, I noticed that there was a little, like a lock washer that you fold over the end so that the inner tie rod doesn't unscrew by itself. And I was like, huh, it's supposed to line up a certain way into the rack and pinion, like it's got little alignment tabs. And for the life of me, I could not remember lining those tabs up on the right side of the car. And so I took it all back apart again on the right side. I pulled the boot, back, and I went back there with an inspection mirror. And for the most part, it looked like it was lined up, like I got lucky. But I still wasn't happy with that. So I took everything apart again on the right side and put it back together, made sure those tabs were lined up how they should be. And now I could sleep at night, because just something like this, you should not be playing around with stuff like this. Someone else's car, someone else's life. This is their steering. They could get into an accident. So I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep. I just had to take it back apart again and make sure it was right. And it was right, but just peace of mind. As far as lower control arm, everything's going pretty smooth here. Came out without any problems. And as you can see, I'm just about ready to pop in a new one. Working on my friend's Sonic here. We're actually changing out the oil cooler because we have reason to believe that the cooler itself is allowing coolant to mix with oil. Look at the container down there, you see all that nasty stuff. And you see how they don't really mix, it just sits on top. So that's why I think it's oil. So we just got the exhaust manifold off. As you can see, we just pulled out this pipe. And look at this rubber right here. Look how it's like just completely like deteriorated. You know, I think it's the oil in the cooling system that's eating the rubber. And it's why we keep having to replace hoses, because they keep getting destroyed. The oil is just eating everything. So hopefully we get this off and replace it and it fixes the problem. We're not 100% sure on this being a problem, but we're just kind of taking a educated guess because it's a common issue on these cars apparently. So let's see how it turns out. Alright, so with the oil cooler off of the car, we took off this plate right here. It just comes off with a few screws. And this passage right here is for oil. And the top passages is for coolant. In the center right here, there should not be anything, but you see all the gunk. So this, in the center, the gaskets have been compromised, and this is where the coolant or the oil was making its way into the cooling system. So we're going to be replacing the whole unit, as you can see, but obviously could have gone away with just replacing the gaskets here. But this is definitely the problem with the car, and this is why we kept having all that gunk buildup inside the cooling system and compromising pretty much anything that's rubber because the oil is eating it. So it's nice to see this and get confirmation that it's gonna fix the problem. Working on the Honda, what is it, Odyssey? Honda Odyssey tonight. My friend over here decided to over tighten the drain plug on his aluminum oil pan and strip the threads. It's a real common issue on these cars, well, any car with aluminum pan. So I have this kit here. It's the first time I use it, and obviously we grab a tab that's slightly larger than the original bolt that's on the car, and then you have all these bolts that are gonna fit and even new washers. So it's pretty cool. First time I use it, and it seems to work pretty well. Well, let's go underneath the car here. As you can see, I got the tab inside of here, and I'm pretty much done making new threads. It worked out very well. The threads look nice and clean. At this point, all we have to do is put oil into the engine, like sacrificial oil, to kind of flush out any shavings that might have gotten into the pan, and we could put a new bolt and washer on it. I'm in a Pontiac Aztek. The owner dropped it off yesterday. I mean, she pulled up in front, and there was so much smoke coming from underneath the hood. The car was overheating, and it actually shut off on her to the point where we had to just push it into a parking spot. So it's now next morning, and I'm looking over the car. I expected to see no coolant in the car, but it's completely filled with coolant. The serpentine belt needs to be replaced, but it's still intact. It's still turning the water pump, and I don't hear any weird noises coming from the water pump. That doesn't mean we don't have a, impeller problem. But first thing I notice is hit the AC button, fans don't turn on. So next step is to try to command the fans to turn on. So you can see here we have low speed and high speed. Let's try the low speed. Alright. Okay, you can see it says on, low speed. Let's go check it out. And we have nothing. Oh, wait a minute. No, they are on. Okay, so let's check the high speed. Okay, I can hear them running. Alright, so at the moment I do not know why the car is overheating. Let's keep looking into it. Alright, so despite the overflow tank being filled, radiator itself looks to be empty. See if I can get a shot of this. You can see there's no coolant inside of there. So at this moment what I'm going to do is fill up the system with water. I know we're in winter, but I'm not going to leave the water in the system. Just don't want to waste antifreeze. So fill up the system with water, pressurize it, and see where our leak is at. Go from there. Alright, so this didn't take too long. Just like I said, filling up the system, which I can't do with one hand. Adding some water into the system, and I could hear something just pissing out back there. Look at that. Something is not happy back there. It's no bueno. Alright, well, at least we know where the problem's at. I went underneath the truck to find out what was leaking, and I did find it. And I ended up moving the hose up here so you guys could see it. It's this right here. You can see it snapped off from its plastic counterpart, and it's actually the hose that goes to the heater core. So that's what's going on here, and that's why it sounds like it's pissing right out the rear end, because it is. We have a broken plastic fitting, so that hose going to the heater core needs to get replaced. As you can see, I got the old hose off of the car, and this is where it failed. Now, some pro tips. Well, not a pro tip because I'm not a pro. But some tips are, like this piece right here that was still on the metal pipe. If the release tabs are hard to get off, just go ahead and crack it off. You know, get underneath it and give it one good pry and it'll crack. The plastic is pretty brittle. Shouldn't have an issue with that. The whole thing is you don't want to damage any more things on the car. Everything is old and crusted in this car, so you don't want to cause any more damage. So just break this piece off if you have to. And pretty much the same exact thing on the side that goes to the heater core. You don't want to get on here with your pliers and start squeezing to try to release the hose, because you might damage the heater core. So what I did is I just came in here with a razor blade and just sliced the rubber hose. As you can see, there's a slice in it right there, and it actually lets this release pretty easy without doing any damage to the heater core. So that's just a few tips if you're doing work like this. Applies to pretty much any car. Picked up a new hose from AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone, not a sponsor. You can see it's a slightly different design. You know, it's aftermarket, but it should work. Made in the good old USA. My focus game is just so weak lately. Look at this. Alright, so let's go ahead and slap it on. Get this bad boy back on the road, tearing up that pavement. Alright, so I'm just about done with this Pontiac Aztek. We are now getting heat out of the vents. You can see it's up to temperature. No leaks, so I'll go ahead and turn it off. I'm gonna go ahead and let the coolant settle, and if it needs to, I'll top it off. Now the woman told me that, hey, ever since you put my starter on it, because last time I was here for a new starter, she said ever since you put the starter on it, my remote start now works. And I told her it wasn't because of the starter, it's because of this wire right here. I saw it was still connected, but it was very corroded. So I was like, I don't know what this wire is for, but I went ahead and fixed the connection on it. So she said her remote start now works. So that's good, right? But anyone who remembers the last time I was here for the starter, I could not get the car to shut up because the alarm was going off like crazy. It was super annoying. So I ended up cutting the wire right here for the horn for the alarm system. Well, now that her remote start now works, she said the only thing she's not getting is the beeping function when she actually pushes the button on her remote. So I figured while it's here for this repair, I'm gonna go ahead and fix these, fix the ones I cut. Well, I already cut one of them. So as you can see, I already fixed it. I have crimp connectors, one right there and one right there, and then everything is heat shrinked and protected. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it right back inside of its loom and wrap it up. Let me go in the house and get the little key fob, and let's see if that little horn works every time we unlock and lock the car. Alright, so just got the key fob. There we go. You heard the actual noise. Nice. So everything's working good.